you'll recognize many of these instruments as basically the same thing that I had in the airplane out there. Okay, this is the full instrument panel. Well, this is intended. Let me show you the outside view first here. Yeah. When people sort of design things, and they kind of design a 2 or most of it's 3D cockpits. You can actually look around the cockpit, but they don't pay a particular attention to the flight instruments. All they're looking for is the realism of being in a cockpit and looking out the window and flying. And that's for the average person, that's fine. But when you're trying to do an instrument trainer, you need really high quality instruments. And some have been done, which you saw the panel, and I'll show you again. But flight gear allows you to do all kinds of different views. You can move around. There's a tower view. Oh, these things are pretty cool. And this is a compiled version, so it's built from source code, but the new binary will have it. When you want to learn how to fly an ILS, they actually draw these little boxes in the sky that run over, so you just fly through them. And if the weather's bad, they still show up. You can turn them on and off, but they're really cool. Fly right to the ground. And there's all kinds of different airplanes. This is the 172, and there we are. If we were actually flying in a multiplayer environment, you'd see artificial intelligence, AI, aircraft taxi out, line up on the runway and go. And you follow them, shoot at them or whatever. And some of the airplanes, people have modeled guns. I mean, they don't really, it's not a combat flight simulator, but people have done it, and it supports it. People with A-10s can drop bombs or whatever. The A-6, the Navy plane A-6 can land on the carrier. I mean, you can do anything you want because you have all the tools to do it. All you need is the know-how and the time. Okay, so going back to this, so there's the cockpit view. So I'm just going to use the joystick here and take off. It's cool because you can see the throttle moving. They've animated it. If I use the stick, you can see the wheel moving. You can't see the rudders because I'm just going to get myself on the runway here. I wasn't paying attention. I went too long. We'll take off from the taxiway. So now I'm just flying with a joystick. You got to realize that it's just a joystick. You know, it's a plastic tool. I mean, it's a plastic toy, but it's really a tool. So heads-up display. So you can take off, and if you want to look at the outside view and just watch the airplane, you can do it that way too, just with the HUD. And so you just fly. You can just fly. And I normally do it this way just to get off the ground and just to because it's just easier to do it when you can see what's going on. But then when you want, the cool thing is you can just hit P, and you want to go back to the view for the panel. Now, you can actually fly this with a mouse. By right-clicking, there's a mouse pointer. There's the reticle for the flight controls. Okay, you can see that. Okay, and then here's the visual. You can actually move the display so you can look around. There's some pretty smart geeks out there, man. Let me tell you what. Someday I hope to be half as smart as some of these people are. Let me tell you. So let me get back to the instruments. I guess I gotta go back to the right view and do that. The cool thing about this is I do have the capability to show you the autopilot here. And if I do this, Nasal is a scripting language written by one of the developers, okay? And it needed a way to talk to the source code easily without having to make changes in the source code and recompile and rerun it and then stop and make changes in the source code and recompile. So they have Nasal script. It's a scripting language. The purpose of a scripting language, if you don't know, is to just extend the application and make it easier to pass information, interact with the running application. It's just a scripting language. So we can do that. And another cool thing about flight gear is that the state of the aircraft, all the different variables, is visible in what's called a property tree. And all these things are available for you to look at by just going File, Browse Internal Properties, boom. Or a shortcut is just the / key. So like here, I did this autopilot thing, so I know what I'm looking for here. And I wrote a bunch of autopilot code, which took me 2 months actually. and I can actually use it here. And I wrote some functions, and I'm actually calling this from the nasal, the scripting code nasal, the console. So watch what happens. And I got it paused. So watch these values right here. These are development tools, okay? This is a development tool. Right now, these strings are not initialized, okay? But now watch what happens when I execute the test. So execute, it goes through, and I actually have, because I'm firing a bunch of lights in the way that the real system works, it has to wait for about 8 or 10 seconds on a timer. But watch what happens here. Okay, did I not hit execute? Okay, it's paused. It was working yesterday when I did this.
Here
There
they
it
go.
goes. Okay, so now I'll actually engage the autopilot. Okay. Now, I will say that I've been working a lot on tuning the autopilot. The people that did the autopilot weren't necessarily pilots and didn't know how a real autopilot works. So when I got a hold of the file, I wasn't sharp enough on this to write my own because I hadn't done it before. So I got a hold of this 1,800 line file, and I had to go through it and try to figure out what they were doing, number one, and number two, was what they were doing right syntactically. Well, it was running, so it must have been syntactically right. But was it correct? Was it logically correct? And I'm not there yet, okay? This is a huge undertaking. But I do have the autopilot working to some degree, and so you can see now that the autopilot's flying the airplane. And you can see that these are properties. You can see the needle moving and going across the runway here. But altitude hold, everything's set, it's Boolean, so it's false. But so this is just programming stuff, but it's done in a scripting format. So like right now, we're in roll mode, so meaning it just the wings are level. And it went from false or 0 to 1. Okay? If I want to be in heading mode, then I just find my heading function, which is right there, heading button. I wrote that function. I'll show you the function in a little bit. And I click that, and it will go after this little heading button. Okay? So if I want to turn the airplane now, let me move this out of the way. If I want to turn the airplane, I just go up here to this knob, and let me go the other way. So I'm flying the airplane with the autopilot, just turning knobs. And this is exactly what a real airplane does. Exactly. I mean, that's the whole purpose of it. And let me see here. We're going to crash if I try to do altitude hold. I don't remember what stage I was at.